I am. Royal Enfield Continental GT. It's not been on the road for a long time. I believe it was in the late 80s, but could be longer. I'll try and find some clues and some history. So this is my uncle's old motorbike. He used to ride it apparently, and I've known it for a long time, since I've been a kid. It was in my grandma and granddad's shed. I used to sit on it, mess around, imagine I was racing it. But time's passed and it remained sat in my grandma and granddad's shed. Then it went to my mum and dad's shed, and now it's finally come its time to be restored. So let's get it back together. As you can see, it's in a sorry state of repair. The wiring's absolutely being messed around with, you know, no idea what was actually going on. I believe it had an overcharging fault at one stage, so I'm not sure whether they were starting to do a 12 volt conversion or anything like that, but right, yeah, this is the state it's in now. All the chrome's failed, the wheels is all a sorry state, but it is a genuine GT, so we're going to start by stripping it down. I'm going to try not to show you the number plate because I do want to try and get that get the documents back for it and try and keep it on the original plate if possible, but we'll see what we can do. So we've got a few aftermarket bits on it that I know about looking at photos. So front mudguard, exhaust is not standard, seat unit is a aftermarket one. Good news is the fiberglass petrol tank. Not sure whether we'll be keeping that or not for safety reasons, but we'll see. It's missing the light switch on the top, which should be there, but we do have the, if I jump up here, the rev counter, if you could ever see that, and the speedo, which you can see the mileage. It's 31,671 miles. So it's done some mileage, but it's a cool little bike. And the funny thing is, a lot of stuff isn't actually seized up. So the front brake actually does work, the throttle does turn, the choke amazingly, I believe, yep, choke works. The gears are tight at the moment, but I think it's the linkage. The clutch works on it, things like that, and it does actually have, amazingly, compression. If I can spin it over by hand or not, it's on compression stroke, so whoa, I'll take the plug out of it and then we'll give that a go. But yeah, let's get it stripped and let's get it rebuilt. Right, so let's pull this spark plug out and then see what happens. Pull the plug out. Turns over super nicely. Now, I have in the past put oil down the barrel, so I'm hoping that's still in reasonable condition, not expecting miracles. It's been stood a hell of a long time, so it's probably not in the best nick, but it turns, so that's always a bonus. And last time I checked, yeah, it's actually still got oil in it. Really clean oil, to be fair, looking at it. So yeah, I believe, like I say, I think it was taken off the road for an electrical issue. I assume the charging circuit failed in some degree, and that's caused issue. Right, so first job I think we're going to do is try and take the fuel tank off. See how that goes. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. take the fuel tank off, you've got a bungee strap at the rear of the tank, just in front of the seat, and then there's two bolts that go directly upwards into the fuel tank, and obviously the fuel line just to disconnect. So it's nice and easy. All I was worried about here was the fiberglass fuel tank, and maybe the bolts had actually stuck into there, seized in some way. But it was nice and easy, and the tank came straight off, no bother. Now we're on to removing the rear seat section. Now this was a bit of a pain. Now two of the bolts are fairly easy to get to, the two rearward ones, but the front two were an absolute nightmare. They were obviously rusty from location and just super awkward. You couldn't get spanners on them, couldn't get ratchet on them, and you were doing them a quarter of a turn at a time. And finally off with the rear seat unit. Now under here was the horn and a 6-volt relay that was only connected to ground, so I'm assuming this relay was for the headlights, but it wasn't connected, so not sure. Then on to the crusty headlight. So this is super simple. Front cover for headlight unit itself is held on by a screw at the top. It goes, then it unhooks out of the headlamp bowl, disconnect the wires behind. You have to poke them all through the headlight bowl, and then it's two bolts, one either side, to remove the headlight unit itself. This is all going to get sent off to be re-chromed and sorted out because it's in a very poor state. The chroming's all failed, it's all flaky and really is in bad state. on to removing the handlebar control. So here I'm using an impact driver to loosen the bolts so I don't damage the screws. They're just locked onto the handlebars with flathead screws, which are obviously difficult to undo when they're super tight. So impact driver, give it a hit with a hammer, it immediately just releases the bolt, and then away I go. I can spin them out with the screwdriver, or in this case I just pulled the grip off and just slid the control off the bar, ready to be sorted later on. Then again, onto removing the light switch, just having a look at how it was fixed. Spray a little bit of WD penetrating oil on it, but it's just got a little flathead screw at the back that just locks it onto the handlebar. It's just a pinch screw onto the bar. So loosened it off, pulled it off the handlebar. It's still connected to the wiring because there didn't seem to be any joints from that to the wiring loom itself. So that's all off with the wiring loom. Then it was time to remove the RPM, the rev counter drive. Now unfortunately this was seized, the ferrule on the bottom was seized to the cable, so I had to spiral the cable out to get it off, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. I'll look at the cable and see if I need to replace it in the end. Then onto the top yoke. We're using the impact gun here just to remove the top yoke bolt. This was super tight. I'd already loosened the pinch bolt, which is an Allen key that's slightly lower down, going horizontally across this. Loosen this off. Once it's loose, manage to spin it out by hand and get rid of that. Yeah, and then just fully removing that pinch bolt. Like I said, it was already loose, but just fully removing it, pulling it out. Getting that out of the way. Then on to removing the two screws that lock in the top of the suspension legs, giving you access to an Allen key underneath. Now using the impact driver again, just to get the initial loosen off on them so I can get them spun out by hand. Then on we're trying to crack the suspension legs off. So I've already loosened the bottom yoke pinch bolt. It's still in there, but it is loose. And as you can see, I can get the right leg loose straight away. It takes a lot of force, obviously being in there a long time, and they're a very fine thread, so you get a lot of torque on them quite easily. But these come out in a clockwise direction. The left hand leg just gave me a bit more grief, but I eventually got it and got it spun out. So just double checking that the pinch bolt was loose, which it was. Spin it out and get rid of that out of the way. And then it's just tight, I believe, as well. Years and years of grime and stuff, but also it's been over painted with what looks like hammerite, to be fair. So multiple layers of paint on it, just seizing everything in place and then making it more difficult. I've still got the front wheel in at this stage, basically so I can use the front wheel and the table to get some leverage and some power into it to try and crack them off, but they were pretty damn tight. Yeah, so in the end finally got them cracked off, got them all loosened off, and then finally put a bit of extra oil just around it. It's not penetrating oil, but just some chain oil just to help lubricate them for when I finally come to take them out in a little bit. then on we go to ripping the rear wheel out of it. So it seems a bit disjointed, but basically I started from the top of the bike working down, and then I got to this stage. I was expecting the forks to actually slide out without having to rotate them out of the stanchions, out of the top yoke, but I was wrong. It's the first time I've ever done a Royal Enfield bike, a Continental GT. So now rear wheel out, so I can lower it down onto the base of the frame, and then I can take the front wheel out, and then finally remove the forks, and everything's low down then. And then finally getting up on the table, lifting it up, taking the weight off the rear wheel, and the rear wheel slides straight out, nice and easy. And then putting it on my ever-growing pile of parts that's amassing, ready to get stripped further and taken off to its respective reconditioners. Now onto the front wheel, getting that out of here. So I'm just undoing I think a Mudguard bolt at the moment, which on this bike it's not using because it's got an aftermarket front Mudguard. And then on the bottom of the forks is two studs, two on each side, with nuts on, and then the axle securing caps just drop away once you've removed those. Now I did actually snap one of these studs, removing it unfortunately, so I'm going to have to get a replacement of that, which is actually part of the spring retention system inside the fork as well. Obviously that wasn't ideal, but it can be fixed, it can be sorted, so it's not a problem. In the end I think I snapped maybe 3 bolts in total stripping this bike down, which I was surprised at how few it was, to be fair. Like this fork one being the worst of it because it was actually attached to another part rather than just being another bolt. Yeah, but it happens. So getting the front wheel out so we can move on. Yeah, then I jump back up on the table so I can get above the bike. The bottom caps are removed, give it a little wiggle, break that rust corrosion seal off the bottom of the forks, and then just lift it away so I can pop it down. And that's the front wheel out, so we're down to a minimal frame now. Yeah, then next up, aftermarket Mudguard. Get this off, I think this was 2 bolts or 4 bolts on the inner side of the fork legs, and then just drop it off dead easy. Nice little fiberglass Mudguard. Yeah, and now we're back onto getting the forks out of the bike. So these spin out clockwise direction. These ones are just super tight because of old paint on them, Yeah, and just metal corrosion. So it's a steel, chromed steel stanchion, top fork leg, going into an aluminium head housing. So it's not the best on a really fine thread. So just spinning them out gave me a bit of trouble. One stage used just a small chisel just to open up the lower yoke a tiny bit, just to release it. But yeah, gave me a bit of fighting, but finally got them out of there. And now on to getting the engine out. So engine mounting bolts. So I think there's 3 at the front, 2 underneath, and then 1 long one that runs through the back. So just dead easy, just pulling them out. Long one through the back was obviously a bit more tricky. Just had to take the nuts off it and then tap it through with just a super long chisel, just to slide it all the way out the back of the engine. Yeah, just tapping a few of the other bolts, getting them loosened off, and then tapping them through with a chisel. They're just stuck into the engine housing and the frame a little tiny bit. Not too bad, but just a bit awkward. And now you can see engine's loose in the frame. I'm just removing the not side stand, the stand off the bottom of the bike, and then I'm going to flip the bike on its side and then take the engine out that way. It's pretty tight in there. I think when I reinstall the engine, I'll probably do it without the rocker cover on, give myself a bit more clearance against the top tube with the rocker cover, as it's just awkwardly tight. Now I need to check if I'm supposed to do it with, if you're supposed to be able to do it with the rocker cover on or not, or yeah, because it just seemed an awkward angle, and I don't want to scratch things when I put it back together. So I'll have a look at that and work out how's the best plan of attack to do it. So yeah, you saw me struggling there with the engine. Basically now I'm thinking, oh, maybe I have to take the rear swinging arm off as well, just to maybe give a little bit more clearance, but I don't think there's anything that actually to be gained by that. So I took the rear shocks off, and then I was going to take the rear swinging arm off, but I had some difficulty with the rear swinging arm pin. That's seized in solid, so once I actually got it all stripped, I then took the frame and the swinging arm over and used the press just to push the pin out nice and gently rather than hammering it to death. Yeah, and finally flipping the frame on its side, which made the engine a lot easier to come out actually. It just dropped off, as you can see, and then away we went. Yeah, so not too bad. And finally removing the top yoke, bottom yoke, and headstock bearings. So reinserting the top nut loosely, or yeah, threaded cap loosely, so then I can just hammer the hammer on it, get it to drop down so I can get the it free. Again, this was just tight, just years and years of corrosion, not being off for a long time, but finally got there and got this yeah, got the headstock all stripped down. And then just once the headstock was stripped down, all the bearings put in a little plastic tub. They'll be replaced, but just to keep them safe. I went on to try and strip the rear swinging arm out of the bike again. Now, like I said before, the pin was seized in this, so in the end I gave up trying to use the hammer and things like that, and just took it and used a press where I could support one side of the frame and just gently press out the pin from the other side of the frame. Came out no trouble like that, and that was good. So that's all sorted and the frame's all stripped, ready for the next stage. So I hope you enjoyed watching this. This is obviously the first episode of many. So we'll move on to doing the wheels, the engine, and reconditioning all those little pieces, so we can get this back into a running bike as quickly as possible, really. And here you can see just the pile of bits left over. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.